Picture this: Darlington Raceway, one of the most punishing tracks on the entire NASCAR Cup Series calendar. The heat is brutal, the asphalt is unforgiving, and inside the number 45 Toyota, Tyler Reddick is running without a cool suit. His team has just botched a pit stop, costing him multiple positions. His car is dealing with electrical problems. He's made contact with another car. And somehow, through all of that, he is sitting dead last with 28 laps to go. Then, without warning, he passes Brad Keselowski, pulls away from the entire field like every other driver has suddenly hit a wall of mud, and crosses the finish line nearly 6 full seconds ahead of second place. 6 seconds. In a sport where races are decided by thousandths of a second. How do you even begin to explain that? Because the answers to that question, the real answers, are going to make a lot of people in and around NASCAR very uncomfortable. Before we get into Darlington specifically, you need to understand the full historical weight of what Tyler Reddick has done in the 2026 NASCAR Cup Series season, because the numbers are not just impressive, they are historically unprecedented. Let's talk about legends. Richard Petty, 7 championships, 200 career wins, the undisputed king of the sport. Dale Earnhardt, 7 championships, one of the most dominant and feared racers in the history of motorsport. Jeff Gordon, 4 championships, 93 career wins, a generational talent who redefined what dominance looked like in the modern era. Not one of those 3 men, across their entire careers, ever opened a NASCAR season with 3 consecutive wins. Not one. In the complete recorded history of the NASCAR Cup Series, that had never been done. Tyler Reddick did it in 2026. And it didn't stop there. By the time he won his 4th race in the first 6 events of the season, he had placed himself alongside only Dale Earnhardt in 1987 and Bill Elliott in 1992, 2 names from a completely different era of the sport, racing in completely different conditions with completely different technology. That is the company Reddick is now in. Here is the part that makes all of this almost impossible to process. Entering 2026, Reddick had 8 career wins in 218 starts. He won 0 races in 2025. 0. His team, 2311 Racing, spent the entire 2025 season in a rebuild. Nobody had Reddick on their radar as a championship contender. Nobody had him as a serious threat. Analysts weren't putting him in their top 5 predictions. And now, before spring is even over, he is rewriting the history books in real time. Start with the Daytona 500, the biggest race on the calendar, the one every driver circles before the season even begins. Reddick didn't sneak through a chaotic last-lap crash or inherit a win through attrition. He announced himself on the sport's largest stage with authority. Immediately, the question spread through the garage: was this a fluke, or the beginning of something historic? Races 2 and 3 answered that question before anyone could even finish asking it. Back-to-back wins. The first driver in Cup Series history to open a season with 3 consecutive victories. History made. Then came COTA, the Circuit of the Americas road course in Austin, Texas. This win is critical for a specific reason that the broader audience needs to understand. Oval track dominance can sometimes be explained away. Certain setups work at certain tracks. Certain conditions favor certain cars. But a road course is a completely different discipline, different braking zones, different corner types, different mechanical demands. Winning at COTA proved that whatever speed 2311 had found, it wasn't track-specific. It traveled. Then came Darlington, and that is where the story gets truly difficult to explain away. During qualifying, Reddick was the 29th driver out, meaning the track had already been laid down by 28 other competitors. Every other driver in that session was locked in a range around 167 miles per hour. Reddick posted 169 miles per hour, over a full mile per hour faster than anyone else, and scraped the wall doing it, carrying so much speed into the corners that the margin for error was essentially 0. That gap in qualifying speed was already being discussed in the paddock before the race even started. Then the race itself unfolded exactly the way we described: battery replacement, restart from dead last, botched tire change, cool suit off, contact with another car, and he still won by 6 seconds. Sit with that sequence of events. Every single thing that could go wrong went wrong. And he still won by 6 seconds. What happened after Darlington is worth paying close attention to, because of how consistent the reactions were across the board. Brad Keselowski, who finished second behind Reddick at Darlington, was direct in his assessment. He acknowledged Reddick's talent but specifically pointed to what he described as a clear horsepower and downforce advantage. He wasn't just paying a compliment to a fellow competitor, he was flagging something specific about the car. Ryan Blaney, who finished third, said something simpler but equally striking. He couldn't point to anything in particular. Reddick was just faster. Everywhere. All race long. There was no phase of the race, no specific corner or straightaway, where Blaney or anyone else felt like they were on equal footing. But the most significant reaction came from Denny Hamlin, co-owner of 23XI Racing, Reddick's own boss. Hamlin finished 11th at Darlington, and after the race he admitted publicly that he was slower than Reddick on entry into corners, through the middle of corners, and off the exit. He said he would be studying the data to figure out what his own team had figured out. Read that again carefully. The man who owns the winning car admitted he could not explain why it was fast. When the owner of the car doesn't know why it's winning, the rest of the garage has a very real problem on its hands. None of this is happening in a vacuum. NASCAR has a long, documented history of performance controversies and garage theories, and understanding that history helps explain why the current conversation about 23XI is as intense as it is. In the early decades of the sport, Ford versus Chevrolet was a proxy war that extended well beyond the track. Both sides were genuinely convinced that the sanctioning body was tilting the rules in the other direction. During Jeff Gordon's era of dominance in the late 1990s and early 2000s, rumors circulated widely in the garage about secret traction control systems on the number 24 car. And when Dale Earnhardt Jr. was winning restrictor plate races at Daytona and Talladega, theories about hidden aerodynamic advantages followed him for years. These weren't fringe ideas whispered by casual fans who didn't understand the sport. These were conversations happening inside the garage, between crew chiefs, engineers, and drivers, people who understood exactly how the cars worked and still couldn't fully explain the gaps they were seeing. That is the tradition Tyler Reddick's 2026 season now exists inside of. And this time, there is something the previous theories never had: a paper trail. Here are the facts, stated plainly. In the 2025 offseason, 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports jointly filed an antitrust lawsuit against NASCAR, alleging monopolistic and anti-competitive practices. The case proceeded through the legal system. A settlement was eventually reached. The specific terms of that settlement are sealed, meaning no one outside of the parties involved has access to what was agreed upon. That is a public fact. The ink on that settlement was barely dry when the 2026 season began. And then Tyler Reddick started winning at a pace that no driver in the history of the sport had ever achieved. The theory circulating in and around the garage is straightforward in its logic, even if it is dramatic in its implications. What if the settlement included more than a financial resolution? What if 23XI Racing walked away with something performance-related, something built quietly into the terms of the agreement? The most extreme version of this theory suggests an unofficial horsepower or downforce advantage baked into the resolution as a way of making the lawsuit disappear without a public admission of wrongdoing. Now, here is the flaw in that theory that is worth addressing honestly. The other plaintiff in that lawsuit was Front Row Motorsports. Across 18 combined starts in the 2026 season, Front Row has produced just 2 top 10 finishes. They are running near the back of the field. If NASCAR was quietly rewarding the teams that sued them, Front Row would be competitive. They are not. That doesn't make the broader theory impossible, it makes the simpler explanation more statistically likely. 23XI made massive upgrades, Reddick evolved as a driver, and elite preparation produced historic results. But in a sport where a sealed settlement document exists and one team is winning at an unprecedented pace, the questions are not going to stop. And they shouldn't. Separate from the lawsuit conversation entirely, there is a genuine performance story at the center of all of this. Denny Hamlin, who has been around NASCAR at the highest level for nearly 2 decades, has spoken specifically about what he has seen in Reddick as a driver. He described Reddick as having become a more complete driver. Raw speed is not rare in NASCAR. The Cup Series is filled with drivers who can post fast lap times in clean air on an empty track. What separates good drivers from historically great ones is racecraft, the ability to manage tire wear across a long stint, to know exactly when to attack and when to conserve, to be patient when patience is the right call and aggressive when aggression is required. According to Hamlin, that is exactly the dimension Reddick has added to his natural speed. There is also a contract dimension to this story that adds another layer of context. Reddick is currently in the final year of his deal with 23XI Racing, and the team has been actively working to secure an extension. Reddick himself has stated publicly that he wants to stay. That mutual commitment matters. It means both the driver and the organization believe that what is happening in 2026 is not an anomaly. Both sides are betting on this being a sustained period of dominance, not a one-year spike that disappears when the contract expires. The broader debate about 23XI Racing's place in the NASCAR hierarchy is now unavoidable. One camp of analysts and insiders is already placing 23XI above Team Penske, one of the most decorated and well-resourced organizations in the history of motorsport, with championships across NASCAR, IndyCar, and IMSA. That is not a casual take. Elevating any team above Team Penske requires a serious argument, and right now 23C's 2026 results are providing one. The other camp is more cautious, and their argument centers on one upcoming event, Martinsville Speedway. Martinsville is a short track. Tight walls. No room to breathe. No long straightaways where raw horsepower creates gaps. No restrictor plates altering the aerodynamics. No road course variables to lean on. Short tracks expose every weakness a car and driver might have, because there is simply nowhere to hide and no way to manufacture an advantage that doesn't genuinely exist. Martinsville will be the true test. Road course speed can come from setup choices. Superspeedway wins can come from drafting and strategy. But Martinsville will reveal whether 23C's dominance is real across every circuit type, or whether there are still significant gaps that the right track will expose. The records are real. The competitors' words are real. The sealed settlement is real. For wins in 6 races is real. What isn't settled is the why, and that question is going to define the conversation around NASCAR's 2026 season for as long as it remains unanswered. Martinsville is next. Short track. No hiding. Whatever the truth is about 23XI Racing and Tyler Reddick, it is about to face its most demanding test yet. And we are only 6 races into what is already one of the most historically significant seasons this sport has ever produced. If you've been watching this 2026 NASCAR season unfold and your jaw is on the floor, smash that like button right now, because it genuinely helps more people find this conversation. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because this season is nowhere near finished and neither are we. Drop your take in the comments below. Do you think something is going on inside that sealed settlement, or is Tyler Reddick simply built different from everyone else in the garage? Let's talk about it.